What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome. This is Tony Akinyemi, bringing you again Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Last week we signed off on the different types of water out there, different descriptions for different types of water. We talked about saline water, we talked about hard water, we talked about soft water, artesian mineral water, rainwater, municipal water, boiled water, filtered water, deionized water, and then the water that we find in raw edible plants. You see, when we eat fresh fruits and vegetables and fresh fruits in their raw state, you see, every type of raw vegetable, fresh fruits, whether they be tubers, or fruits, or vegetables, or nuts, and what have you. Most of these raw fruits and raw vegetables and raw nuts are composed of somewhere between 50% and 95% of water. So actually, when we consume a lot of raw foods, we are also ingesting a lot of water. And then we have number 11, steam distilled water. 12, we have alkaline water. And 13, we have what we call structured water, which is also known as wet water. Okay, so I promise that today we'll be commencing with looking at the different pollutants and contaminants that can be found in water. You see, because the bottom line for the type of water we drink is that it must be pure. It must be unpolluted. It must be uncontaminated. And so we need to identify the different types of pollutants and contaminants that can pollute or contaminate our water. It's important to get properly hydrated, and it's more important to get hydrated with the right kind of water: pure, clean, unpolluted, uncontaminated. All right, so let's begin by looking at the different pollutants and the different contaminants. Because you see, the more you drink water, if the water is polluted, the more you bring in pollution into your body. Particularly during this season when the heat is extreme all over the place, particularly in the tropics. Here in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, the heat is something else. You see, while some people are crying about cold and snow and winter and whatever, we have moved from the Harmattan season in about December 2023 to January 2024. And as we moved into the months of February, March, April, we started experiencing extreme heat conditions. One of my friends in the USA was talking to me the other day, and she was complaining of a lot of cold in her state in the USA. And I said, wow, maybe we should strike a deal where we kind of, bring together your cold and my heat, and we find an average, then we can share. Maybe both of us will benefit. You get a little warmer, I get a little cooler, and then both of us win. It becomes a win-win situation. So of course, I was joking. So as we hydrate during this very, very warm season where most of us sweat a lot, we have to drink water that doesn't carry pollutants or contaminants that will cause problems when it gets into our body. Now, the first contaminant or pollutant that I'll be looking at today is a very controversial one, but I have, my views and my position already settled based on the science. And that is the subject of chlorine in water. For me, chlorine is a pollutant. It's a contaminant. Now, in my O-level chemistry, we were taught the periodic table. And we have the halogens, the group 7, in the group 7 in the periodic table, where you have things like chlorine, bromine, iodine, fluorine. All of them end with in. All of them are called halogens, and they constitute group 7 on the periodic table in O-level chemistry. All the halogens are toxic to the human body except iodine, which is a trace mineral that we all need in our body for many wonderful functions, particularly for our thyroid gland, and indeed for many other glands in the body, all right? Including the mammary glands, the prostate glands, and what have you. But the gland in the body that needs iodine the most is the thyroid gland, because iodine happens to be the major ingredient that the thyroid gland uses to make the hormones that we need, thyroid hormones. So chlorine belongs to the same halogen group, group 7 on the periodic table, and it's a toxic substance. Now, municipal water supply, and sometimes even some types of bottled water, is usually laden with chlorine. And chlorine is usually used to sterilize water because it kills germs in water. All right? Now, so chlorine in chlorinated water, apart from killing the germs in water, when we drink the chlorine along with the water, it can also kill our intestinal flora. In other words, it can destroy the friendly bacteria in our intestine. And these friendly bacteria are there in a symbiotic relationship with us. In other words, we benefit from them, they benefit from us. Now, these bacteria, which we call friendly bacteria, they feed on the residue of food in our GI tract, particularly fiber. All right? And so by the time they feed on fiber, they are benefiting from us. And then they also produce what to them are waste materials, but to us are nutrients. They produce vitamin B12, for example. They synthesize vitamin B12 in our gut, in our GI tract. These bacteria also synthesize vitamin K2. So we derive vitamin B12 and vitamin K2 that these friendly bacteria produce in our gut, whereas the waste products in our gut that we couldn't digest or utilize, they feed on that. So it's a symbiotic relationship. And now, scientists have said that we all have bad guys and good guys in our digestive tract or in our system. The bad guys are the infectious microorganisms that can infect us and cause disease. They are called the bad guys, okay? And then the good guys are the intestinal flora, the beneficial and friendly bacteria that inhabit our GI tract, okay? And scientists have said that we all must have at least 80% of our intestinal flora, the bacteria that inhabit our GI tract, our digestive tract, at least 80% of them must be from the good guys category, the friendly bacteria. And not more than 20% must be from the bad guys category. That is the dangerous, the ones that can cause diseases, bacteria. All right? So ratio 80 to 20. That is what is regarded as the normal balance in an average person, in a healthy person. When that ratio shifts and you have more of the bad guys, more than 20% of the bad guys, and less than 80% of the good guys, that is an imbalance. And that imbalance is described as dysbiosis. Dysbiosis. Okay. Now, when chlorine is added to water and chlorinated water is now ingested, we drink it, it destroys the friendly bacteria. Of course, it can kill the bad guys as well, but the issue is that bad bacteria always find their way back into the body, even when they are not invited. Because you see, they are all over the place. You eat some contaminated fruit, contaminated vegetable, drink contaminated water, drink all kinds of things. Now, the bad guys will always come inside one way or another. But the good guys don't come easy. You have to be intentional to get them into your system, either by taking probiotics or by eating fermented food. They come along with fermented food like yogurt, like kefir, like, all those fermented things, or fermented corn. In West Africa, we call it pap or ogi in Yoruba language, or akamu in Igbo language. The raw one, before it is cooked, you can actually scoop the water on top of it and drink, and it's bubbling with friendly bacteria, all right, which can populate your intestinal flora with good guys. So you see, chlorine in chlorinated water destroys these good guys. And once you diminish and deplete the population of the good guy, you are actually creating dysbiosis. And once there is dysbiosis, that can cause disease. Now, the long-term effect of drinking chlorinated water may actually double a person's risk of certain diseases, particularly bladder cancer. Now, Kenneth Cantor and his colleagues at the American National Cancer Institute actually studied about 3,000 patients that were diagnosed with bladder cancer. And they found that chlorinated water may as much as doubled their risk of that disease. And then Dr. Steinbarber, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Dr. Steinbarber also quoted and said, chlorinated water causes various cancers, unquote. Now, that's not my statement. That's from Dr. Steinbarber. It says, chlorinated water causes various cancers. Of course, I know that many will debate this. Many will argue against it. Many will contest it. But these are people who have found from their studies, from their researches, from their experiences, that this is so. Now, although the level of chlorine that is found in municipal water is said to be safe, yet, personally, I think it's doubtful for me whether this statement is true or not. Now, if all that chlorine does, by the way, is to kill germs in the water, we can as well just boil the water to kill the germs without contaminating the water with chlorine. If all we want to achieve is, let's destroy all the germs in the water so the water can become free of germs, free of bacteria, or free of whatever microorganism, infectious agent that may be present in the water. If that is the aim for adding chlorine to water, then why not just boil the water? Those germs will die all the same. So boiling your water will achieve the same thing that chlorinating your water will achieve, minus the contamination. That's my own submission. So you find out that most water treatment products out there are actually chlorine-based, particularly those things that are added to water. Many people buy them in the market. They add them to their water to purify their water, not realizing that what they're actually adding to their water is chlorine. I don't want to mention brand names so that it won't be as if I am launching an attack on certain brands. No. But all I'm saying is that any water purification product that is chlorine-based, in my personal view, with my understanding and knowledge, is not acceptable. It's a no, 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 because the chlorine is going to be contaminating the water, all right? Some water engineers will say they want to help you to, purify your water, your borehole or your well, and then all they do is to add chlorine to your borehole. They call it water treatment. They add chlorine. For me, they are not purifying your water, they are contaminating your water. All right. There are certain water purifiers out there that, for me, are essentially chlorine dispensers. They just have cartridges that have chlorine in them, and the cartridges are installed into those so-called water purifiers, and it's just dispensing the chlorine bit by bit into the water, and they call the water purified. No, for me, that is not a water purifier. That is a water contaminator, if there's anything like that. So the first water contaminant that we're looking at is chlorine. Now, Dr. Norman Walker, PhD, DSc, says, and I quote, "Chlorine kills the enemy in war and the citizens in peacetime." They actually use chlorine as a poisonous gas to deploy during war times in chemical warfare. So Dr. Norman Walker says chlorine kills the enemy in wartime and it kills the citizens in peacetime. They use it for chemical warfare during wars, and then they use it to chlorinate water to kill citizens instrumentally. Dr. Norman Walker also says, and I quote, he says the combination of chlorine when used in chlorinated water combined with animal fats eaten in the diet causes a chemical amalgamation of the chlorine and the fat. And this results in the formation of a gummy substance in the arteries. This gummy substance is a cumulative process so long as the person continues to drink and eat this combination. There's no way to correct this affliction once it progresses too far, okay? Because the accumulated gummy product in the arteries will cause three major things. Number one, it can result in heart attacks, myocardial infarction, and that's, according to Dr. Norman Walker, the mildest warning. He said it can likely develop into atherosclerosis, where the blood vessels become narrowed and hardened. They lose their elasticity, and that impairs on blood circulation. All right. So apart from heart attack and atherosclerosis, the third thing it can bring upon, according to Dr. Norman Walker, is that it can lead to a funeral. God forbid. It can become fatal. So now, like I said, this is a controversial one, but it's settled as far as I'm concerned. It's a settled science that chlorine is toxic and chlorine should never be used for whatever reason to so-called purify or treat our water. So any water treatment method that has chlorine or chlorination involved, for me, is a no-no. Now, don't go away. I'll be back again to continue this beautiful conversation on water pollutants and contaminants. Again, this is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget that what we need is not more medication, but more education. For the best prescription is knowledge. I'll be back shortly. Welcome back. This is still Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. We're talking water pollutants and contaminants. And the first one we have identified today is chlorine in water chlorination. I personally don't drink chlorinated water except I don't know. If I know that it's chlorinated, I will not take it. The second pollutant and contaminant is another controversial one, probably even more controversial than the first one. And that is the subject of fluoride in water, water fluoridation. Now, there has been a long-standing debate on fluoride. Now, I'll give you the two schools of thought when it comes to fluoride. Now, one school of thought believes that fluoride reduces cavities and helps to repair the damage in early stages of tooth decay, and that tooth structures become stronger and harder and more resistant to acid or acid attacks when fluoride is used regularly, either in toothpaste or in mouthwash or even in water. That's why water is fluoridated in some states and in some countries. That is one school of thought. That's what that school of thought believes. They believe that fluoride is beneficial, it prevents tooth decay, it strengthens the enamel of the teeth, and, it makes it more resistant to, acid attack. All right. But then there's another school of thought that believes that it is only the fluoride that occurs naturally in the plant kingdom in colloidal form that is good for our teeth. Okay? Now, the school of thought, this particular second school of thought, believes that the fluoride that is used in our toothpaste and in our mouthwash and in water fluoridation is actually dangerous to our health. The school of thought believes that the salt-based form of chloride used in fluoridated water, in toothpaste, in mouthwash is extremely poisonous and is actually a proven carcinogen. A carcinogen, by the way, is a cancer-causing substance or cancer-causing agent. So the big question that we are debating right now is fluoride safe? Is it good, or is it a contaminant? Is it a pollutant? Well, I'll leave you to make up your mind, but I'll give you what I know, the information that I have. Now, fluoride is found in the plant kingdom in colloidal form. And in that form, it is not harmful to our body. Okay? Now, what is a colloid? When I say colloidal form, what is a colloid? Now, a colloid is any substance that is in such a fine state of particles that it will take from somewhere between 50 million to 125 million particles to measure just 1 inch. 1 inch. You need to put 50 million of such particles together to 125 million together to measure 1 inch on your ruler. Any particle that is that tiny, that is a colloid. So when you find particles with that tiny size in water, that is called in its colloidal form. That's kind of very tiny particles. Now, so fluoride has been christened chlorine's twin sister because fluoride is produced, the one that is used in water fluoridation, in toothpaste, in mouthwash, is actually produced in large scale as a byproduct of aluminum smelting. There's a long history behind that. I don't want to go into it. But I recommend a particular book by Ted Brower. Ted Brower is a biochemist, and he wrote that book. The title of the book is Maximum Energy. You may want to find it on Amazon.com or eBay or any bookstore. Maximum Energy by Ted Brower. In that book, you will find a lot of background history and story about how water fluoridation came about, how our toothpaste started getting, fluoride added to them, how mouthwash started having fluoride added to them. And he will give you a good lowdown on the chemistry and biochemistry of fluoride. Okay, now there is what is known as the poison index. The poison index has a list of all substances that are toxic to the human body, poisonous to the human body when consumed in a certain amount, beyond a certain amount, all right? So everything that is toxic, that is poisonous, is listed on the poison index. And it is listed from the most poisonous to the least poisonous. That's how it is listed. It's called the poison index. Now, on the poison index, fluoride is listed there. Are you surprised? And in fact, other poisonous substances that appear on the poison index include lead, arsenic, and what have you. And those of you who probably watched my episodes last year, 2023, when I was talking about toxic metals, all right? I dwelt a lot on lead, on arsenic, on aluminum, on cadmium, on even plastic, nanoplastic and microplastic, and they are a danger to our health. Now, lead is highly toxic, highly poisonous. Arsenic is toxic, poisonous. But do you know that fluoride is listed on the poison index as more toxic than lead? As poisonous and toxic as lead is, fluoride is more toxic than lead and only slightly less toxic than arsenic. Now, I just want you to process that. I want to process that. So the question whether fluoride is safe or not is already being answered by the science behind it, okay? So the city of Thurmond in Maryland, USA, there was a time the city shut down its fluoridation pumps for repairs and maintenance. The pump that they used to fluoridate the municipal water, the water corporation water. We call it water corporation in Nigeria. They call it municipal water over there. Now, the city of Thurmond in Maryland shut down the fluoridation pump for repair and maintenance during the particular period. And they noticed that up to a 78% decrease of lead occurred in their tap water. As they shut down the fluoridation pumps for repair and maintenance, the water that was being supplied to homes, when tested, they found that it had up to a 78% decrease in lead, the lead content of that water. Why did that happen? Because now we know that fluoride is so acidic that it actually severely corrodes lead pipes conducting water from point A to point B. It can corrode, joint solders and almost any metal in general. So as fluoridated water was flowing through lead pipes into people's homes, it was corroding the lead and carrying it into the water and delivering it to homes. So the lead content of the water being supplied to homes was high when the water was fluoridated. But when the fluoridation pump was shut down for repair and maintenance and the water being pumped was no longer fluoridated, the amount of lead found in the water dropped by as much as 78%. So is fluoride safe or not? Well, according to experts, fluoride can actually act like a rat poison. You see, fluoride doesn't kill instantly. It simply accumulates in our glands, in our adipose tissue, that is fat tissue, over time. And then it causes damages later. And when the damages show up, you may never be able to link it with fluoride. Now, I told you that the thyroid gland collects iodine and uses it to synthesize our thyroid hormones. Now, it's not only iodine that the thyroid gland can pick up. In fact, almost all the halogens, iodine, bromine, chlorine, fluorine, all of them can be picked up by the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland collects twice as much fluoride as any other gland or organ in the body. The thyroid gland has a special affinity to pick up those halogens, when they are circulating in the blood. So again, I ask the question, is fluoride safe? Well, fluoride is a total enzymatic poison as far as I'm concerned. And that creates some of the rarest forms of, tumors and diseases and cancers, according to research conducted by the United States National Toxicology Group. The United States National Toxicology Group have done a lot of studies on fluoride. Now, the United States Congress had to mandate the National Toxicology Group to conduct tests on fluoride. And they found that some of the rarest sarcomas, by the way, a sarcoma is a form of cancer. There are about 5 different types of cancers. One type is the sarcomas, all right? They found that, some of the rarest sarcomas in existence were actually caused by the injection of fluoride. Now, Dr. Robert Meek, of Laurel Springs in New Jersey, offered, he offered $100,000 to anyone who could prove that fluoridation is healthful, that it has health benefits. He put $100,000 on the table. If anyone could prove to him convincingly that, fluoride was safe and actually health-giving. At first, Dr. Robert Meek himself was an ardent believer in fluoridation, water fluoridation, toothpaste fluoridation, mouthwash fluoridation. And then he began experiments with animals, testing animals, doing animal studies with fluoride. And as a result of his studies, he began to learn, he began to observe, he began to see that bones, teeth, kidneys, livers, and spleens had actually accumulated up to 500% more fluoride than controlled animals. The animals that were being given fluoridated water had accumulated more than 500% more fluoride than the ones that were given non-fluoridated water. And he began to monitor them to their offspring, to the next generation and the next generation, and he observed that cripples were born to the 3rd generation of those animals that had accumulated a lot of fluoride in their glands and tissues. And that 100,000 US dollars he put on the table as a challenge for anyone who could prove to him that fluoride was healthful, that challenge has never been challenged. That reward he put on the table, no one has taken up that challenge. And he was not the only person who did that. Dr. E.H. Bronner of Escondido, California, who incidentally is a nephew of Albert Einstein, also offered the same 100,000 US dollars to anyone who could prove that fluoridation was beneficial to humans. And fluoridation not only, hardens the teeth, it actually hardens the teeth as it is claimed. Yeah, it does it. It also hardens the arteries. It hardens the brain. And the same compound, fluoride, is also used as rat poison. Now, according to Dr. Bronner, fluoridation of public drinking water is criminally intolerant, utterly unscientific, and actually chemical warfare, unquote, by Dr. E.H. Bronner, who is a nephew of Albert Einstein. I quote him again. Fluoridation of public drinking water, in other words, adding fluoride to public drinking water, is criminally intolerant, utterly unscientific, and chemical warfare. Well, that's the case for fluoride. Now, let me close by going into the dictionary, because I was very, interested when I started reading all of these studies and research and opinions of scientists all around the world. I got a little bit keener, and I said, let me check the dictionary. What does the dictionary say about fluoride? And I checked Webster's online dictionary for sodium fluoride, and you can go check it yourself. Merriam-Webster.com. Merriam is Merriam Webster, Webster, Merriam-Webster.com/dictionary/sodium, and so on and so forth. Now, sodium fluoride, according to Webster's online dictionary, is a poisonous crystalline salt, NaF. Now, the chemical symbol for sodium is Na, sodium, and F is fluoride. So he says sodium fluoride is a poisonous crystalline salt that is used in trace amounts in the fluoridation of water, in metallurgy, as a flux, and as a pesticide. That's the dictionary definition of sodium fluoride. The same chemical used to fluoridate water and added to our toothpaste and our mouthwash. The dictionary says it is used in fluoridation, it is used in metallurgy, it is used as a flux, and it is used as a pesticide. Right. Now, this is how far we can go today. When we come back, we'll be looking at many more contaminants that can be found in water. As you can see, the two contaminants that we have looked at today are actually humanly added to our water, deliberately, intentionally added for good intentions maybe, but it turns out that there are unintended consequences for the good intentions of adding both chlorine or fluoride to our products. So personally, I don't take chlorinated water. I don't take fluoridated water. All right? And as far as I'm concerned, based on the science that I know and that I have laid on the table, those two substances are contaminants and pollutants. We'll talk more about many more. Keep a date with us, same time, same platform, next week. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. I love you. Bye-bye.